I wasn't planning to stay after dark. Not even close. The idea was simple: get there late afternoon, walk one of the quieter trails, take a few photos before sunset, and head back before it got too cold. I'd done that kind of thing dozens of times before. This place just happened to be new. It was a small protected area, a few hours off the main road. No visitor center. No crowds. Just a narrow parking lot, a wooden map board, and a trail that disappeared into dense trees almost immediately. Exactly the kind of place I usually look for. When I pulled in, there was only one other vehicle. An old pickup. Dirty, like it hadn't been washed in a long time. Mud dried along the sides, streaked across the doors. I remember thinking it probably belonged to a ranger or someone working nearby. I didn't think much of it. At least not then. The air felt different the moment I stepped out of the car. Cooler than it should have been. Not freezing, just still. Like the forest was holding its breath. No insects. No distant sounds of traffic. Just wind moving slowly through the trees. I grabbed my camera and started down the trail. At first, everything felt normal. The light filtering through the branches had that soft, golden tone you only get right before sunset. It made everything look warmer than it actually was. Calmer. I stopped a few times to take photos: the curve of the path, the way the shadows stretched across the ground, the texture of the bark on the trees. It was quiet. But not uncomfortable. Not yet. I'd been walking for maybe 15 minutes when I saw him. He was standing just off the trail. Not far, maybe 10, 15 feet into the trees. Close enough that I should have noticed him earlier. But I hadn't. He was wearing a dark green jacket and a faded cap. Nothing unusual for a ranger, except he wasn't moving. At all. He just stood there, facing me. Watching. I slowed down a little, more out of uncertainty than fear. Then I gave a small nod as I got closer. "Hey," I said. He didn't respond right away. A few seconds passed, long enough for it to feel off. Then he tilted his head slightly. Not a full nod. Just enough to acknowledge me. Up close, something about him felt wrong. I couldn't immediately explain it. Maybe it was how still he was. Or how his eyes didn't quite match the rest of his expression. "Evening," I added. He finally spoke. His voice was low. Quiet. Like he wasn't used to using it. "You alone?" It caught me off guard. "Yeah," I said. "Just taking some photos." He didn't react to that. Instead, he glanced past me, deeper into the trail behind me, like he was checking something I couldn't see. Then he looked back at me. "You shouldn't stay after dark." The way he said it, there was no urgency. No warning tone. Just certainty. I let out a small, polite laugh. "Yeah, I wasn't planning to." Silence again. He didn't smile. Didn't nod. Just watched me. And for a moment, neither of us said anything. I shifted my weight, already half turning to continue down the trail, when he took a step closer. I didn't hear him move. I just noticed he was suddenly nearer. "When it gets dark," he said, a little quieter now, "don't stay on the trail." That was the first time something in my chest tightened. "Why?" I asked. I expected something normal. Wildlife. Unsafe terrain. Maybe even just standard protocol. He shook his head. Slowly. "If you hear someone calling your name, don't answer." I remember staring at him, trying to figure out if he was joking. He wasn't. His face didn't change. The forest around us felt heavier somehow. "What do you mean?" I asked. He didn't reply right away. Just looked past me again. Longer this time. Then finally, go back to your car while there's still light. A breeze moved through the trees, stronger than before. Somewhere in the distance, something creaked, wood shifting, maybe a branch bending under its own weight. I suddenly became aware of how dim it had gotten. The light was fading faster than I expected. "Right," I said. "Okay. Thanks." He stepped back. Not turning away. Just retreating into the trees. And within a few seconds, I wasn't even sure where he was standing anymore. Like he had blended into the forest. Or was never fully there to begin with. I stood there for a moment, listening. Nothing. No footsteps. No movement. Just the wind again. I told myself it was nothing. Just a strange guy. Maybe overly serious about his job. I lifted my camera again. Just a couple more shots, I thought. Then I'd head back. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Behind me. Slow. Even. Too deliberate to be an animal. I turned immediately. The trail was empty. No one there. No movement. Just the path and the trees and the light fading faster than it should have. That was the moment I realized something wasn't right. I just didn't know yet how late I already was. I stood there longer than I should have. Just staring at the empty trail. Waiting for something to move. Nothing did. No branches shifting. No footsteps fading away. Not even the sound of someone stepping off the path. It was like the noise had never belonged to anything physical. I told myself it was just the forest. Echoes. My own steps bouncing back at me. That happens sometimes, right? Still, I turned in a slow circle, scanning the trees more carefully this time. "Hello?" I called out. The word felt wrong the moment it left my mouth. Too loud. Too sharp against the silence. No answer. Just the wind. I exhaled, trying to shake off the feeling crawling up the back of my neck. "You're overthinking it." That's what I kept telling myself. I raised my camera again, more out of habit than intention, and snapped a quick shot down the trail. The shutter sounded louder than usual. Or maybe everything else had just gotten quieter. I checked the photo. At first glance, nothing. Just the path, the trees, the fading light. But something about it made me pause. There was a darker patch between the trees. Not a shape exactly. More like an absence of light. I frowned and zoomed in slightly. Still nothing clear. Just shadow. I lowered the camera. And for a second, I had the strange, unmistakable feeling that I wasn't alone anymore. Not in the way I'd felt earlier. This was different. Closer. I turned again, slower this time. Listening. That's when I noticed something else. The forest had gone completely quiet. Not calm. Not peaceful. Empty. Like all the small background sounds, insects, birds, distant rustling, had been removed. Replaced by nothing. Even the wind had stopped. The air felt heavier now. Thicker. I swallowed and adjusted the strap on my camera. "Okay," I muttered under my breath. "Time to go." I started walking back the way I came. Not fast. But not slow either. Just steady. Trying not to look like I was in a hurry. The light was almost gone now. What had been a soft, golden glow just minutes ago had faded into something grey and flat. The kind of light that makes distances harder to judge. I kept my eyes on the trail. One step after another. Gravel crunching under my boots. That sound helped. It grounded me. Made everything feel normal. For about 30 seconds. Then, "Hey." The voice came from somewhere behind me. Clear. Close. I froze. Every muscle in my body locked up before I even had time to think. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It sounded familiar. Not like someone I knew, but like someone who should be there. I didn't turn around. I don't know why. Instinct, maybe. Or maybe something deeper, something that understood before I did that I wasn't supposed to. Hey, the voice said again. Softer this time. Almost patient. Like it was waiting for me to respond. My heart started beating harder now. Slow, heavy thuds in my chest. I remembered what the ranger had said. If you hear someone calling your name, don't answer. But this wasn't my name. Not yet. I took a step forward. Then another. Trying to keep moving. Trying to pretend I hadn't heard anything. The gravel under my feet sounded too loud again. Or maybe the silence behind me was just too deep. Wait. That one was closer. Right behind me. I could feel it. Not physically. But in the same way you feel someone standing too near in a dark room. I clenched my jaw. Kept walking. Do not turn around. Do not answer. My breathing had changed now. Shorter. Shallower. And then it said my name. Perfectly. The exact way people say it when they know you. Not guessing. Not calling out randomly. Recognizing. That was the moment something cold slid through me. Because I knew there was no way anyone here should know my name. Not out here. Not in the middle of nowhere. I stopped. I didn't mean to. My body just reacted. Like it was being pulled between two decisions at once. Turn around. Or run. The voice didn't repeat it this time. It didn't need to. It already had my attention. And in the silence that followed I realized something else. The footsteps had stopped too. Whatever was behind me was no longer moving. It was just standing there. Waiting. Right at the edge of the trail. Right where the trees began. And for the first time since I got there I understood that the ranger's warning hadn't been about getting lost. It had been about this. And I had just made my first mistake. I don't know how long I stood there. A few seconds. Maybe longer. It's strange how time stretches when you're trying not to move and something is standing behind you. Waiting. I could feel it. Not touching me. Not breathing. Just there. Close enough that if I turned around, I wouldn't have to search for it. And that was exactly why I didn't. My fingers tightened slightly around the camera strap. I forced myself to take another step forward. Then another. Slow. Controlled. Like nothing was wrong. Like I hadn't just heard my own name spoken from the trees. The gravel crunched under my boots again. Too loud. Everything felt too loud now. Except for whatever was behind me. That made no sound at all. No footsteps. No shifting. Nothing. That was worse. I kept walking. 10 steps. Maybe 15. And then I realized something that made my stomach drop. The trail didn't look right. It was the same path. Same narrow strip of dirt and scattered stones. But the way it curved, the way the trees leaned in, it didn't match what I remembered. I slowed down. Okay, I whispered under my breath. I had been walking this trail for maybe 20 minutes before turning back. There was no way it should feel unfamiliar already. Unless I stopped that thought before it could finish. No. I wasn't lost. Not yet. I glanced to my left. Dense trees. Too close together to see far in. To my right, more of the same. And then, for the first time, I noticed something I was sure hadn't been there before. A broken wooden sign, half hidden behind a tree. I stepped closer to it, hesitation creeping into every movement. The wood was old, weathered, splintered along the edges like it had been exposed for years. There were letters carved into it. Faded, but still readable. I brushed my fingers lightly across the surface, clearing a bit of dirt. And that's when I saw it. North Ridge Trail. Below that, in smaller, almost worn-out letters. Closed since 1998. I stared at it, my mind trying to fit that information into something that made sense. That couldn't be right. I had checked the map at the entrance. There was only one main trail. No mention of anything being closed. No alternate paths. No warnings. Just a simple loop. I stepped back slowly. And that's when it hit me. I hadn't turned onto another trail. I hadn't made any decision to change direction. And yet this wasn't the same path anymore. A cold weight settled in my chest. I looked behind me. The trail stretched back the way I came. Empty. No one there. No movement. But the feeling that something was still watching hadn't gone away. If anything, it was stronger now. Like it was closer. Or maybe just more patient. I swallowed and took a slow breath. Just keep going, I whispered. Just get back to the car. I didn't even try to sound confident anymore. I just needed movement. Forward. I started walking again. A little faster this time. The light had dropped even further. Shadows pooling between the trees, stretching across the ground like dark water. It didn't feel like evening anymore. It felt like something else. Like the forest had skipped a step and gone straight into night. And then, hey! The voice again. This time, in front of me. I stopped so suddenly my foot slipped slightly on the gravel. My heart slammed hard against my ribs. No. No, that wasn't possible. I hadn't heard anything move past me. Nothing had gone around. Nothing had made a sound. Slowly, very slowly, I lifted my head. The trail ahead was empty. But the trees on either side, they felt closer now. Leaning in. Watching. You're going the wrong way. The voice was calm. Clear. Closer than before. And definitely ahead of me now. Not behind. Not to the side. Ahead. My throat went dry. Because this time I recognized it. It was the ranger's voice. Exactly the same. Same tone. Same quiet certainty. But something about it was off. Like it was being repeated. Copied. Without understanding what it meant. I took a step back without thinking. Then another. And that's when I realized I couldn't hear my own footsteps anymore. I looked down. My boots were still hitting the ground. But the sound was gone. Completely. The silence wasn't just around me anymore. It was swallowing everything. Even me. Come on, the voice said softly. Over here. A pause. Then, my name again. Perfect. Familiar. Wrong. And this time something moved between the trees ahead. Not clearly. Not fully visible. Just enough to break the shape of the darkness. Just enough to let me know there was something standing there. Waiting for me to come closer. And for the first time since I entered the forest, I understood something with absolute certainty. I wasn't trying to find my way back anymore. I was being guided somewhere else. I didn't move. Not forward. Not this time. Every instinct I had was telling me the same thing now: don't go toward it. The shape between the trees didn't come any closer. But it didn't need to. It was already exactly where it wanted to be. Waiting. Patient. Like it knew I would eventually make the wrong decision. Over here, it said again. Still using the ranger's voice. Still calm. Still wrong. I took another step back. Then another. This time faster. My breathing was no longer controlled. Each inhale felt shallow, tight in my chest. The silence around me pressed in harder with every step. I turned. Fully this time. No hesitation. And started walking quickly down the trail behind me, or at least, what I hoped was still the way back. I didn't run. Not yet. Running felt like panic. And panic felt like losing control. But I was close. I could feel it. That thin line between holding it together and something breaking completely. The forest didn't change. That was the worst part. No sudden movement. No loud noises. No chase. Just the same trees. The same path. The same unnatural quiet. But something was different. I could feel it without seeing it. Like pressure building behind me. Keeping pace. Matching me. Without making a sound. I focused on my steps. Left. Right. Left. Don't look back. Don't listen. Just move. And then, I saw it. Up ahead. Through the trees. A break in the darkness. Faint. But unmistakable. Light. Not sunlight. Too cold for that. Too steady. But it was something. And right now, it was enough. I picked up my pace without thinking. Not running. But faster. Gravel shifting harder under my boots. My heart pounding louder in my ears. The light didn't move. Didn't flicker. Just stayed there, waiting. That should have been a warning. But at that point I needed it to be real. I needed something that made sense. As I got closer, shapes started forming around it. Straight lines. Sharp edges. Man-made. Relief hit me so suddenly it almost made me dizzy. A structure. A building. Small. Wooden. Old. But standing. I stepped out of the trees and into a small clearing. The light was coming from inside. A single window. Dim yellow. Steady. The kind of light you'd expect from an old cabin. Or a ranger station. For a second, just 1 second, everything felt normal again. Safe. Like I had found the way out. I moved toward it. Slowly at first. Then a little faster. My body pulling me forward before my mind could question it. The door was slightly open. Just enough to let the light spill out onto the ground. I stopped a few feet away. Something about it felt off. Not dangerous. Just wrong. Like seeing something familiar placed where it shouldn't be. I looked back over my shoulder. The tree stood still. Silent. Dark. Nothing there. But the feeling hadn't left. If anything, it had followed me right up to the edge of the clearing. I turned back to the cabin. The door creaked slightly as it moved. Not opening more. Just shifting. Like something inside had changed position. I swallowed. Hello? I called out. My voice sounded small. Too small. No answer. Just that same steady light from inside. And then, from somewhere deeper in the forest, I heard it again. My name. But this time, it wasn't trying to lure me. It wasn't calm. It wasn't patient. It sounded far away. and strained. Like something was calling out from a distance it couldn't cross. Like it had lost track of me. Or worse, like it knew exactly where I was and couldn't reach me anymore. I slowly turned back toward the trees. The darkness there felt different now. Less controlled. Less certain. Like whatever had been guiding me was no longer the only thing out there. A chill ran through me. Because that meant one thing. I hadn't escaped. I had just stepped somewhere else. And whatever was inside that cabin had been waiting for me long before I arrived. I should have left. The moment I saw the cabin I should have turned around. But I didn't. Because standing out there in the dark, with something in the trees that knew my name, the light felt safer. Even if it didn't make sense. Even if every part of me was telling me something was wrong. I stepped closer to the door. Slowly. Carefully. The wood beneath my feet shifted with a dull, hollow creak. Old boards. Weak in places. Untouched for a long time. The air felt different here. Warmer. But stale. Like it hadn't moved in years. I stopped just at the edge of the doorway. And looked inside. It was small. One room. A desk near the far wall. Shelves to the left. A chair tipped slightly to one side, like someone had gotten up in a hurry and never came back. The light came from a single lamp sitting on the desk. No flicker. No sound. Just on. I stepped inside. The moment I crossed the threshold, the forest behind me disappeared. Not visually. I could still see the doorway. Still see the trees. But the feeling of it, the pressure, the presence, it was gone. Like I had stepped out of something. Or been let out. I didn't know which was worse. I took another step in. Then another. The floor creaked under my weight, but the sound felt muted. Distant. Like it wasn't fully reaching my ears. I glanced back at the door. Still open. Still leading out into the dark. I could leave. Right now. No resistance. No voice. No footsteps behind me. Nothing stopping me. And yet I didn't move. Because something inside the cabin had my attention now. The desk. There were papers scattered across it. Old. Yellowed. Edges curled. I moved closer, drawn in without fully deciding to. My fingers hovered over them for a moment before I picked one up. It was a report. Typed. The ink faded but still readable. My eyes scanned the lines quickly at first, then slower. Then I stopped breathing. Incident log, October 14, 1998, North Ridge Trail closure. The same name from the sign. My grip tightened slightly on the paper. I kept reading. Multiple hikers reported hearing familiar voices calling from off-trail areas. Subjects described voices mimicking known individuals. A cold weight settled in my chest. 2 individuals missing. Search teams reported disorientation within marked paths. Trail sections did not align with mapped routes. My heart started pounding again. Harder this time. Closer. Like it was trying to warn me. Ranger Elias Moore, I stopped. Read that line again. Slowly. Last confirmed contact at 1942. Radio transmission ended abruptly after subject stated he was not alone on the trail. The paper trembled slightly in my hand. Elias Moore. The ranger. The one I had just spoken to. I looked up. The cabin felt smaller now. The walls closer. The air heavier. I set the paper down slowly. Carefully. Like making sudden movements might disturb something. There were more documents. Stacks of them. Reports. Notes. Handwritten warnings scribbled across margins. I picked up another one. This one wasn't official. The writing was uneven. Hurried. Almost desperate. It learns your voice. My throat tightened. Don't follow it. Don't answer. Don't look when it calls. I felt something shift in the room. Not a sound. Not movement. Just a change. Subtle. But undeniable. I turned slowly toward the door. Still open. Still empty. But the darkness outside, it looked closer now. Closer than it had been a moment ago. Like it had taken a step forward. I forced myself to breathe. In. Out. In, the lamp flickered. Just once. I froze. The light steadied again. Silence. And then, from somewhere inside the cabin, behind me, I heard it. A voice. Quiet. Close. Too close. You came back. My blood ran cold. Because this time, it wasn't using my voice. And it wasn't calling me from the forest. It was inside the room with me. And I knew, without turning around, I wasn't alone in the cabin anymore. I didn't turn around. Not immediately. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to move, to run, to get out, to do anything except stand there. But something else held me in place. The same thing that had kept me from answering. From turning earlier. That quiet understanding that some things only become real when you look directly at them. The air inside the cabin felt thicker now. Harder to breathe. Like the space itself had closed in around me. You came back. The voice didn't repeat itself. It didn't need to. It was already too close. Too clear. I swallowed, my throat dry. And slowly, very slowly, I lifted my eyes toward the doorway instead. Still open. Still leading out into the dark. But the darkness wasn't empty anymore. It moved. Not like something stepping forward. More like something unfolding. Stretching between the trees. Waiting. I took a step toward the door. Behind me, nothing. No footsteps. No movement. Just that presence. Right at my back. Close enough that I could feel it without touching it. Another step. The floor creaked beneath me, the sound dull and distant. My hand lifted slightly, instinctively reaching for the door frame. If I could just get outside, if I could just get back onto the trail, everything would make sense again. That's what I told myself. That's what I needed to believe. Don't. The voice behind me changed. Not louder. But sharper. Clearer. And this time I recognized it. My chest tightened. It was the ranger. Not the calm, distant version from before. This sounded strained. Like it was forcing its way through something. Don't go back out there. I stopped. My hand inches from the doorframe. The darkness outside shifted again. Subtle. But enough. Like it was reacting. Listening. You won't make it back, the voice said quietly. Right behind me. Closer than before. If you leave now, it'll follow you. A cold wave ran through me. Because I knew, this voice was different. Not copied. Not mimicked. This was the same man I had spoken to earlier. Or at least what was left of him. My fingers curled slowly against the wood of the door frame. What is it? I whispered. For the first time since entering the forest, I spoke. The silence that followed was immediate. Heavy. Like the entire place was listening. The thing outside the cabin stopped moving. Completely. Behind me, the ranger didn't answer right away. And when he finally did, his voice was barely more than a breath. "It's what stays when people answer." My stomach dropped. The word settled into something cold and permanent. I closed my eyes for a second. Just one. Trying to think. Trying to understand. The trail. The voice. The way it knew my name. The way it had tried to guide me, and not back, but somewhere else. I opened my eyes again. The darkness outside the cabin had crept closer. Almost at the doorway now. Not crossing the threshold. Just waiting. Like it knew I was deciding. Like it had all the time in the world. "Stay inside," the ranger whispered. "Until morning." Morning. The word felt distant. Uncertain. Like something that might not come. I let out a slow breath. And stepped back from the door. The moment I did, the darkness outside shifted again. A subtle recoil. Not leaving. Just pulling back slightly. Like it understood. Like it accepted the choice. Behind me, I heard the faint sound of something settling. Not footsteps. Not movement exactly. Just a presence easing. I didn't turn around. Not then. Not ever. I stayed inside that cabin for the rest of the night. I didn't sleep. Didn't sit. Didn't speak again. I just stood there listening. Sometimes I heard movement outside. Slow. Circling. Sometimes, far off in the trees, I heard my name again. But I never answered. And I never looked. When morning finally came, it didn't arrive all at once. The darkness thinned. Gradually. Reluctantly. Until the trees outside looked like trees again. Still. Empty. Normal. I stepped out of the cabin carefully. The air felt different. Lighter. Like something had lifted. The trail was there. Clear. Familiar. Exactly as it should have been. No broken signs. No extra paths. No cabin behind me when I turned to look. Just forest. And silence. I made it back to the parking lot in less than 10 minutes. My car was still there. So was the old pickup. But it looked different in the daylight. Older. Rust along the edges. Flat tires. Like it hadn't moved in years. I didn't stay. I didn't check. I just got in my car and drove. I didn't go back. Not to that place. Not to any place like it. But sometimes, late at night, when everything is quiet, I hear it again. My name. Soft. Familiar. Patient. And always from just beyond where the light ends. I didn't talk about it for a long time. Not because I forgot. But because I couldn't explain it in a way that made sense. For a while, I tried to convince myself it was just disorientation. Stress. The kind of thing that happens when you're alone too long in unfamiliar places. But that didn't explain everything. It didn't explain the documents. Or the name. Or the cabin. A few weeks later, I went looking for answers. Not back to the forest. Just records. Old articles. Archived reports. Anything tied to that area. It took longer than I expected. Most of it wasn't easy to find. Buried. Scattered. Some of it didn't exist anymore unless you knew exactly where to look. But eventually, I found something. A short report from 1998. No photos. No detailed explanation. Just a brief notice about a section of trail being permanently closed after multiple incidents involving disorientation and missing persons. 2 hikers were never found. And 1 ranger, Elias Moore, was listed as missing during a search operation. No body recovered. No official conclusion. Just gone. I remember staring at the screen for a long time after reading that, trying to match the name on the report with the man I had spoken to. The one who warned me. The one who told me not to stay after dark. I never found anything about a cabin. No maps showed it. No records mentioned a structure in that part of the forest. It was like it had never existed. Or like it wasn't supposed to. I thought about reporting what happened. But I didn't. Because I already knew how it would sound. And because a part of me didn't want anyone going back there looking for it. Looking for answers. Looking for something that might still be waiting. I stopped visiting places like that after. No more isolated trails. No more empty forests. Nothing where the silence feels too complete. But every now and then, usually late at night, I still wake up for no reason. No sound. No movement. Just that same feeling I had standing on the trail. Like something is nearby. Just outside of sight. And sometimes, just before I fall back asleep, I hear it again. Not from far away. Not from the dark. But close. Right next to me. Quiet. Patient. Learning. Saying my name like it's been practicing.